The draft recap for the Audible continues as we go around the NFC East, and that starts with how about them Cowboys, Bloom? And well, how about those Cowboys? Because I knew they're going to take Tyler Guyton. I love it when a plan comes together. Now, the Cowboys taking Guyton to be on that offensive line, and he fits with what they do. Also, Marshawn Nealand, potential borderline first round pick.
Mhm.
And so they get him at the 24th pick in the second round. Edge from Western Michigan, like the upside and the hustle there from him. So that's a value pick. Cooper Beebe, Kansas State offensive guard. Reminds me of Dalton Reisner. And I'm not helmet scouting when I say that, but like I like the Beebe pick. So there's 1, 2, 3 picks that I like. One that I called in my mock draft. Yay, me. And then two others that follow. All right, the rest of the draft we'll see. Maurice Liufau, I hope. Notre Dame linebacker. I apologize every year. I apologize. I'm sorry. Kalen Carson, cornerback, Wake Forest. Ryan Flournoy in the 6th round. Southeast Missouri State wide receiver. Don't hear that very often.
No.
So there you go. And I'm trying to think, what was Rod Smith's college? It was somewhere around Missouri. Anyway, Nathan Thomas, Louisiana offensive tackle in the 7th, and then Justin Rogers, a defensive tackle out of Auburn in the 7th. So the Cowboys start out strong, start out with some really good players, really good value, and then we'll see about the rest.
Yeah, Missouri Southern, undrafted in
Yes.
this time that we celebrate undrafted free agents, one of the greatest undrafted free agents in NFL history. The Cowboys didn't have one of the greatest off seasons in NFL history, but
Ah,
the draft came, and this is a chance for them to do something. First thing they do is trade down, and they get pick 73 for trading down. They get Guyton. Like you said, Cease, if they had taken Guyton at 24, everyone said, okay, typical Cowboys first round pick. Have you heard this one before? The Cowboys take a highly projectable offensive lineman who has some stuff to work on in the first round, but has a high ceiling as a right tackle, kind of like Amarius Mims, the Bengals pick. Not as high a ceiling, not as high level of play so far on tape, but you like that. Nealand, like you said, sees a lot of people had him sneaking into the first, a power edge, not a bendy, sudden shot out of a cannon edge, but hey, you need power edges, and power edges can be very productive also. So this team is always going to continue to reload at edge every single year. BB, like you said, he's a power guard. So, again, power.
power.
Uh, we'll see who's going to be running the ball. Well, Ezekiel Elliott, we've heard that already. Leofau is a energy linebacker. You need to harness all that energy. And this team, they have Eric Kendricks right now. Maybe they don't love Damone Clark as his long-term replacement, the long-term middle linebacker. So maybe it is Leofau. The 4th round pick turned into Trey Lance. Let's make sure. I always like doing this, Cease. I think it's important to do this, partially because I think teams are right when they say, the Bears say we have to include Montez Sweat in our draft class, right? I mean, that makes sense.
Sure.
We're gonna
Yeah,
talk.
it
We're gonna
does.
talk about the Giants. Include Brian Burns in their draft class. So and it also gives you an idea of how these teams go about spending their draft capital. And in this case, the Cowboys spend it on Trey Lance. Dak Prescott doesn't have a new contract yet, does he? Hmm. And then they spent a pick to get Eric Scott last year, who actually sounds like a better fit under Mike Zimmer anyway. They get Kalen Carson, good cover guy. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be a value pick. Another pick they traded in the Brandon Cooks trade. So again, you can see how the Cowboys go about using their draft capital. You really like this Flournoy pick, okay? And they've had some other guys like this, Semi Fehoko, uh, guys with physical traits you want at outside wide receiver. Will they get there? Maybe, maybe not. But know that if Jalen Tolbert, as today we hear Michael, we're recording on Tuesday, Michael Gallup just signed with the Raiders. Jalen Tolbert could be the 3rd round pick from 2 years ago, could be the replacement for Gallup. And Brandon Cooks isn't much longer for this team. So there's room there for Flournoy to develop into an important role in this offense. They got another power offensive lineman in Thomas, a project, and then a run stuffer with Rodgers. So not a flashy draft for the Cowboys. A lot of power, a lot of beef for the trenches, and no running back.
Before we get to UDFA, I'm going to ask you that. Why no running back?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Look, pick 73, I believe, would have given them their choice of any running back other than Jonathan Brooks, right? So I mean that was the thing, right? Jonathan Brooks I mean, so you can look at this one of two ways, Cease. One is that they know that Jerry is going to show his papers that you gave him and talk about who they want to take because he said we really, 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 really like Jonathan Brooks. I mean, Jonathan Brooks over under for the draft prop was 56.5, which made it into a prop. Like, are the Cowboys going to take him at their second round pick or not?
Yes.
Carolina was in on Brooks, so it's not a surprise that Carolina actually traded down before trading back up to get Brooks. Okay, so my point in this and going through this whole scenario is so Brooks goes at 46. I'm sorry, Trey Benson. Trey Benson went at 66. So they missed out on Brooks and Benson. But by trading down in the first round, they get the 73rd pick, and they could have had any other running back. And doesn't that make sense? You're like, okay, we need a running back, but let's get an extra pick so it doesn't have to throw off our plans. So they must not have liked these running backs other than Brooks. But then you still have these, and yes, they traded some picks in the Cooks and Scott and Lance trades. But we saw on the third day, see, so we're going to talk about Philadelphia. Wow, you talk about moving and grooving. Look, in the NFL, there's no excuse for not getting a guy in the third day of the draft. If there's a guy you want on the third day of the draft, lots of teams were trading 2025 picks to get guys on the third day of the draft this year. So it's a good question, Cease, and I don't think it's because they like Rico Dowdle. I don't think it's because they feel like they can count on Ezekiel Elliott, although it is really funny, Cease, that Ezekiel Elliott starts out as the number 4 overall pick, and the anti-running back value crowd, which for the most part is it's bore out that they're correct. Um, they were saying don't do it, and I was actually one of the people saying, well, the Cowboys at that point in time were the most well-situated franchise team to harvest the value of Ezekiel Elliott, right? Like they're going to multiply the value of Elliott because of their offense, because of their offensive line. So why not take a running back high when your team is already set up to feature a running back, and then you're really going to leverage his skills? Now Ezekiel Elliott at the end of his career is part of the running back doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter if you have good blocking, you can bring in Ezekiel Elliott at this point in his career and still have a productive running game. I don't know if that's what the Cowboys think. I don't know if we're going to see them make another move at running back, but I do think that something went wrong. This could not have been their intention going into the draft.
No, and you can't be so myopic to just be like, it's Brooks or nobody. Like, there
Yeah.
was a back in their building. Hell, I'll give you two backs that were in their building that they should have drafted in at least the seventh round. One is Blake Watson, and I
Mm-hmm.
love him. The
Right.
other one's Jayden Sheridan. And Jayden
Mm-hmm.
Sheridan's got some skill. And he's right there at the Shrine Bowl, right in their building, both of them. And they're just like, oh, we got to get Jonathan Brooks. Like, okay, whatever. Let's talk about their undrafted free agents, which Brevin Spanford should have been drafted.
Right.
Tight end, Minnesota. Now more drops than touchdown catches. That's a problem. But he's athletic, converted wide receivers, got some basketball skills. So that's my guy, Bloom. Who do you
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. Sheridan signed with Carolina, ironically. I think that, Brevin Spanford's the guy we got to talk about, a big two-way tight end, some upside. One of the players that got 250,000 guaranteed. So, that's your top of the undrafted free agent class in a thinner free agent class because of a thinner draft class overall. But again, even in the undrafted free agent running backs, he's like you said, Watson, there are lots of others. We're going to talk about Kendall Milton, Philadelphia, right? There were a lot of undrafted running backs they could. Nope, none of them neither.
Ha! Nothing. It sounds like the Giants' plan, as I had said on this show that I believe the Giants are lying about their interest in quarterback for the quarterbacks that were being mentioned, Drake May and like JJ McCarthy. Okay, they were lying and they were going to take Malik Neighbors. I had said that. Feel pretty good about that. That's what happened. Now the work they did mostly, I was on Bo Nix, who they wanted at the end of the first round. Where's my Morgan Freeman voice? He did not make it to the end of the first round. So the Giants, they get Malik Neighbors. We should be celebrating that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is Daniel Jones should be celebrating that because the interest in quarterback was there. It just wasn't the quarterback that they were trying to promote everybody. It doesn't help when your head coach's poker face is him in a cold sweat sitting at the coach's breakfast in Orlando, sitting there like, oh, and I like Brian Dable, but dude, you got to play the game like Sean Payton. I
Yeah.
don't want to tell you about these guys, but JJ McCarthy, oh my God, like you got to play the game. And it was very easy to tell that, Dable doesn't have a good poker face, and they were lying about their interest in May and McCarthy. That's my opinion, Bloom. Others may have reported other things. Hey, report anything you want, baby. Report it all. It's all good. Tyler Nubin, safety, Minnesota. By the way, Neighbors is maybe the best receiver in this class. Okay, like that's explosion, big playability, everything. We go on and on about him. We should. Let's get through the rest. Third round, Andrew Phillips, Kentucky corner. Theo Johnson, Penn State's got some skill. Fourth rounder there. Is he the Waller insurance? Yeah, probably. Tyrone Tracy, Purdue running back there in the fifth. And Darius Musau, UCLA linebacker to round things out in the sixth.
Yeah, the May talk is interesting because I will say this.
He failed in the. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I suppose I can't tell you which teams failed him in the interview process, but let's just say he was failing in the interview process with some teams that may or may not be the one we're talking about right now.
And what's interesting to frame here, as of course, in the days following the draft, we get reports. And I will say this, Cease, when I say the name Mike Garafolo and the Giants, he's been covering the Giants as long as we've been doing this. He was of course on our 5-minute drill the first season, our first on the iPhone.
His first TV appearance was on the 5-minute drill.
Yeah. And he said that they tried to trade up to 2 and 3 for May. I think the offer that was out there was something like the number 6 and a 2025 first. And look, if you're the Patriots and so here's the deal with May. There was as you're hinting at, Cease, there was a wide range of opinions on May, right? So
very much so. And I will say this, not to go against Mike, because again, if Mike is saying something, there's certain people that if they're saying that about the team, like, okay, we're going to listen to that. But I will say this, the stuff that says after the draft is probably even larger lies than the stuff that said before the draft.
Sure. It's just,
of course, we wanted
for conversation.
We wanted the number 3 pick. We tried. We really, really. If you want him, you can get him.
Yeah.
It's just like saying when someone gets away in a con, oh, we just couldn't afford him. You can always afford him. You really wanted May. You really wanted May. You could have got him.
But so there's also talk about Minnesota, right? The Minnesota talk
Minnesota really wanted him.
But see, here's the thing. Minnesota, apparently, per Mike Reese, okay? So Mike Reese, peerless, he doesn't just put stuff out there to put it out there. So per Mike Reese, the offer for May was 11, 23, and next year's first, and they wanted some mid-round picks back. Now, you might argue, and I was talking to someone this morning on Twitter who I think has some good points to bring up, that that's not really a strong offer for May. I mean, when you're talking about moving up to number 3, 11, 23, and a first-round pick that's probably mid-first next year, and you want some mid-round picks back, that's not a break-the-bank offer. That's not a blow-our-socks-off offer. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, yeah, I mean, how – because I'm thinking about this when you're talking to J.J. McCarthy, and I know it's not the Minnesota. We already did Minnesota, but if you're our guy, except if we could have gotten Drake May. That makes things a little awkward, right? But if you're offering only 3 firsts that are mid-round firsts to move up for your franchise quarterback, that's why you're moving up, and you want some mid-round picks back, that's not as convincing. Now, Malik Neighbors and the Giants first next year. Well, where's the Giants first next year going to be? I mean, Drake May's not going to get them out of the gut. I mean, now that's a strong offer. A first-round pick that is potential top 10 pick next year just to move up 3 spots, and you're still going to get a premium pick. So if the Patriots, and we're not talking Patriots yet, but if the Patriots weren't sold on Drake May, and that offer really happened, like you said, Cease, then that was the offer. Instead, nope, the Patriots get May, and the Giants get Neighbors. Did you see the Neighbors press conference, Cease? Did you see the first time he talked to the press?
No.
He called the quarterback, well, one of the quarterbacks for the Giants, Janiel Dones. He's always going to be Janiel Dones in my mind from now on. Right? Is that perfect?
Okay, that is.
I mean, isn't that the universe winking at us through Malik Neighbors saying, "Oh, you mean Janiel Dones, our quarterback?" Yeah, I guess I'm looking forward to meeting him. I don't know. I think it's very possible that we don't see Dones start a game this year, right? Because of the injury guarantee. That injury guarantee kicks in. Oh no. So it might be Drew Lock's team. And yeah, Drew Lock, maybe them drafting Neighbors helps Drew Lock. We'll see, helps him get a good deal next year somewhere, a bridge quarterback, or maybe he's the Giants quarterback next year if they play well enough that they're not in position to take a franchise quarterback with Neighbors' help. Now, if there was a blemish on Neighbors' scouting report, it was, well, he might be more like Odell Beckham. He might be more like, I won't say a diva, but a wide receiver that there may be some discontent. So let's watch this situation here because Neighbors might be drafted to a team here, Cease, that has a new coach, a new quarterback, new GM even next year. I mean,
Good. You
yeah,
want to win,
well,
right?
that's true. That's true. Get the second round pick becomes Brian Burns. Okay, again, this you just traded a pick for Brian Burns. You're not, you're hoping to get out of the gutter, but this team is probably still at best third in this division. Tyler Nubin, they get first safety off the board, a good athletic cover two type safety. That they get that in the Leonard Williams trade. They get Phillips, physical, aggressive, athletic, doesn't have ideal length, doesn't have ideal on ball production, but that's the corners that are around in the third round. Theo Johnson, an upside two-way tight end from Penn State. Maybe it's not Daniel Bellinger, tight end of the future. Was Darren Waller tight end of the present? We'll find out. Love the Tyrone Tracy pick. Okay, here's a good pick. Here's where we're going to say some good things about the Giants. Tyrone Tracy, people compared him to David Johnson, converted wide receiver, great physical traits, just starting to learn his way as a running back. There's a lot there with Tyrone Tracy. Musal, just a solid depth linebacker, low ceiling. And then, of course, the 7th round pick they traded for Isaiah Simmons. You want to talk about how far players fall, right? Remember how
Yeah.
excited we were about Isaiah Simmons?
Oh
Isaiah
yeah.
Simmons is still with the Giants. He signed a 1-year, $2 million deal with them. So there's your Giants, Malik Neighbors, and like you said, Cease, maybe a new beginning next year. You hate to root for a coach and a GM to get fired, but that Daniel Jones decision is looming over this team.
Yeah, it's hurting. It's hurting. That's for sure. Although I'm rooting for Drew. I'm rooting for Drew. He changed things in Seattle. We'll see. I mean, maybe, just maybe, man. And probably not with Dable. Dable's going to be one of those, like, he's a good coordinator.
Right.
He's not a good head coach. And that's fine. Baby. Like, that's the way it is for a lot of folks out there. So, hey, let's talk about undrafted guys. Ayura Asante, Wyoming. Talked to him at the pro day in Laramie. Holy Cross transfer, smaller, nose for the end zone, super quick, really, really like a good, humble, kind of do anything. His teammates loved him. And that was the cool thing about being at the Wyoming Pro Day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk about like the transfer portal and NIL and stuff, the best college programs for like connection are probably going to be like your Mountain West schools, where it's like, all right, you're not getting the most NIL. We're probably not going to lose a bunch for transfer portal. We might get guys from the transfer portal because they just want
Right.
to play. So those type of programs um, might actually thrive when it comes to like a family type of feel. So Asante's there. I like talking to him at the pro day. Good kid. I'll be rooting for him.
Yeah, the one guy I want to point out here, just because it gives me a chance to geek out on Syracuse lacrosse, is Casey Rogers, a developmental defensive tackle from Oregon. But he started out as a lacrosse guy. And this is a chance for me to bring up that if you think Jim Brown was a great football player, some up in Central New York would say he was an even better lacrosse player. I believe he's in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame. Don't quote me on
I
that.
believe he is too. Yes.
Yeah, and my father, the late Sigmund Hellblum, was a student at Cornell around the same time, and I believe he would tell me that Jim Brown, if you think Jim Brown's scary on a football field, like you don't even want to meet him on a lacrosse field.
Mm,
So there's some connection there between lacrosse and football.
I like it. Philadelphia Eagles. I love
Yeah,
Howie Roseman.
yeah,
I love him. I love him. I love him. And um, they were thinking about moving up for
yeah.
Quinion Mitchell.
To your
Um,
12th pick, right? To your Broncos
yes,
12th pick.
yeah. So phone calls were being made because it's Howie. I think Howie called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, this is the way you run a team. All right. This is the way you do it. And they say at 22, and they still get Quinion Mitchell, the guy that they wanted. They get Cooper DeJean. How does Howie do these things, right? I'm getting chills just talking about this guy. So they start off the draft with two guys that were highly thought of. DeJean should have been a first rounder. Is he a corner? Is he safety? He's a baller. All right. And Quinion Mitchell plays like a wide receiver on defense. I mean, he moves like a wide receiver. He mirrors routes like a receiver. It
Mhm.
is Amazing. You can tell whose draft I really love. Jalix Hunt, third rounder, Houston Christian edge player. Will Shipley from Clemson. I admire his game, running back there. So we'll see how he works out in that backfield. How he's just stocking them up. Hey, what else we need? Ania Smith, wide receiver, Texas A&M, stocking them up. Jeremiah Trotter,
Mhm.
dude, of
Mhm.
course. And
Mhm.
the Philadelphia contingent around Trotter's podium at the combine,
Mhm.
because I think he was at the same podium. I don't like the way they do it now. So I had to post up at one spot because I was at one spot so I could get JJ. I happened to get Penix there. And I believe it ended up being Trotters like the next day or whenever linebackers talked. But of course, the Philadelphia contingent was around Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Clemson linebacker, the 5th round pick now, or Trevor Keegan, Michigan OG in the 5th, Johnny Wilson. And here's the thing. Bloom.
Mm.
I think Johnny Wilson should be a tight end. And that was suggested to me by the gentleman, ladies and gentlemen, by the gentleman who cuts up film for John Gruden. And there
Oh,
are still teams that use John Gruden as a consultant, whether people want to, but whether I should reveal that or not, whether people get, up in a twist about it. But yeah, there's teams out there that still talk to John Gruden as a resource. The guy that cuts up film for him told me like Johnny Wilson should be a tight end. And I love the idea. I love the idea because I don't think Wilson's a wide receiver. Anyway, let's talk about it, Bloom. Oh, by the way, Dylan McMahon,
right.
NC State OG. Can't forget about him in the 6. Howie did it again.
Yeah, he sure did. And what you love about Howie, as fantasy football players, we have to love this. He plays the draft. He plays the draft. But
Oh, he
yeah,
does.
like you said, Mitchell. If they had traded up for Mitchell, no one would be surprised to get the most athletic corner in the draft. They trade up in the second to get Cooper DeJean, who could be safety, could be a corner, one of those pieces, highly athletic, and probably not going to stick at outside corner. But yeah, the Eagles addressing a weakness in the secondary. And then, so I just want to take a moment out to, I'm not going to do this in detail, but if you put everything together, and my brain's, post draft haze. But so we'll talk about this when we get to Washington. So to move up for DeJean, the Eagles allow the Commanders to move up from like 78 to 53. So here's the Eagles now sitting with 78. Their second round pick turns into 78, so they can go up and get DeJean. Cease. This is what they turned 78 in. This is what Howie turned 78 into. You ready? Jalix Hunt, Will Shipley, part of the package to get Jeremiah Trotter to move up and get him. Houston's fifth and Detroit's fourth next year. That's 2 players, help getting a third player, and 2 picks next year for pick 78.
Do you
And
think
there's
Howie just sits around after the draft smoking heaters, being like, "Yeah, I did
well,
it."
I mean, it's just he always has clarity on whether it's right to make a trade, whether it's worth it to make a trade. That's what you have to really admire about this approach. So Hunt is a project pass rusher with high ceiling. He's got the length, athleticism. Let's see if he can teach him how to be a pass rusher. Also, by the way, the Kenny Pickett trade is in here somewhere. But they used the pick they got. They traded down in the Kenny Pickett trade. That's the pick the Steelers used to get Peyton Wilson, and then they turned that pick into Miami's third next year. So Howie Roseman comes out of this draft really quickly. He comes out of this draft with Mitchell, DeJean, Hunt, Shipley, Smith, Wilson, Keegan, McMahon, and also in this, they had spent some of the draft capital to get uh, Pickett and to get um, Bayard and CD Deuce, right? So they actually use some of this draft capital in other trades. They get all these players, and they have a third, fourth, and fifth round extra next year. Extra 3 extra picks next year. How do you do it? So they get Shipley, good receiving back. We'll see. Replacement for Kenneth Gainwell, maybe a more formidable Kenneth Gainwell down the line. Um, Smith is a rack guy, a slot receiver, rack guy. I know Matt Waldman likes him. Trotter is more of an early down linebacker, but not a guy you necessarily want in passing situations, but you love the sentimentality here. Seeing Trotter Jr. on a Philly uniform.
Love it.
Sometimes you just honor the past. Sometimes you just honor what the history of the team is. Keegan, again, if it's a Michigan player, we're going to hear about Michigan players. He was their guard on the national championship team. Wilson, like you said, Cease, Some see him as a tight end. The Eagles haven't indicated that they see him as a tight end. He does have good releases off the line. He can get open as an outside wide receiver. With the size, though, you do wonder if it's like a move like what the Steelers or Bears should have done, or Dolphins, with Chase Claypool. McMahon, a solid center. Keegan, again, a solid guard. So to get a couple of solid depth guys, and there you go, Eagles. Howie Roseman always puts on a show, and I think the most exciting thing is that he is always willing to trade. He's not just calling him. I mean, it's not just him calling. Call him if you want to make a deal. You know, really. Well, sometimes, I mean, in
Oh,
fantasy football, sometimes you just make a trade to like get the dopamine.
yes, right,
I
right.
think that's Howie during the draft.
Yes, for sure, man, for sure. Sitting there playing Candy Crush, we're like, call me, call me. UDFA's McAllen Castles is a huge tight end.
Uh huh.
From Colorado, by the way. I like talking to
Oh,
McAllen at the Shrine Bowl. He told me that Joe Milton's nickname was Bazooka Joe. Then I called Joe that at the Senior Bowl, and he was like, "Don't call me that. I don't like that nickname." I was like, "Okay, that's
ooh,
fine." Hey, that's what McAllen said. I'm blaming you, McAllen. Anyway, big target. He's a
yeah,
Y, you
yeah.
know. So all-purpose blocker, red zone guy. We'll see. I like him.
Yeah, they also got Kendall Milton. Kendall Milton comes to the Georgia program as a highly, highly recruited running back. Never really hits, but as Matt Waldman detailed in his RSP, kind of maybe the light bulb was going on for him at the end of his last year at Georgia. They give him like 200, again, 225, 250 guaranteed as a UDFA. Kennedy Brooks didn't quite work out as a UDFA running back for them, but let's see what goes on there. You mentioned Castle's basketball background, so we're always going to pay attention to that.
Mhm.
He already has his master's degree. He has his master's degree. He's not smart enough to know what nicknames a guy likes and doesn't, but he already has a master's degree, and
Ha,
he's going into the NFL. And then they also got Gabe Hall, who Jane Brugler had in the 4th round, an upside, big,
yes.
like 3 tech, 5 tech defensive lineman. So
Mhm.
even a good UDFA class for Howie.
Yeah, you're not going to run on these guys anymore. All right. Where are we weak at? Let's go
Yeah.
strengthen that. Washington Commanders to wrap up this lengthy show. We are chatty blankety blankers, Blue.
Yeah. There's a lot
That's
to
fine.
talk about.
That's fine. This is fun. This is
Yeah.
fun. It's a yearly tradition. And talking about Howie Roseman gets me energized. Washington. It was Jaden Daniels. It's been Jaden Daniels for months. And he was the guy. I don't care about the Top Golf, and everybody was there. Like, that's first off, I'd fire his agent for tweeting anything about that. But it's Jaden Daniels, and he's amazing. He's my number one quarterback in this class. I know. Caleb Williams, generational talent. Hope the Bears don't ruin him. We'll see how that works out. But Jaden Daniels can do it all. He's got the game of a modern quarterback, and he comes in with MVP like upside. Okay. And we could say the same thing about Caleb because of generational talent, blah, 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 blah. But legit on field, Lamar Jackson upside for Jaden Daniels from day one. From day one. And they clear the way for him, trading away Sam Howell, who's too competitive to get out of his own way. So it's like, okay, he's the man, he's the guy. The thing I'm worried the most about Jaden is his lower body. And the fact that he'll take on stuff like he's Josh Allen or Cam Newton, and he's not built that way. So 10 pounds of muscle, bulk up that lower body a little bit more if you can. He's a better passer than people think. He's not just a runner. And so we'll see how Washington utilizes him with Cliff Kingsbury running the show. Remember, it's all about fit, Bloom.
Hmm.
There's my F word, and I don't even have to say sorry, Joe, when I say that. So we got plenty to talk about him. Let's go on. Second round, Jerzon Newton, Illinois defensive tackle. Second round, Mike Sanristil,
Saner still.
Sanristil, Michigan corner. Thank you. Ben Sinnott, Kansas State tight end. He's a freak. I
Yeah.
believe he was number one at the combine in 3-cone drill, broad jump, and vertical. So explosivo, as Tenacious D would say. Third round, Brandon Coleman, TCU guard, Luke McCaffrey. And I was texting with somebody, and they're like, when is Luke going to go? And I said, third round. There he goes off the board. Really happy for him. Do it all type of wide receiver, lunch pail guy, just like Pops, man, just like Pops. Jordan Maggi, Temple linebacker. Broncos liked him, had him in for a top 30 visit. Coverage guy, in addition to being smart and flowing to the ball and being
Mm-hmm.
sound in the run game. Dominique Hampton, Washington safety in the 5th, and rounded out with the guy that should have been drafted higher, Javante Jean Baptiste,
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame edge, and to see Adam Peters put together his first draft bloom. I love Howie Roseman, but you know what? I think Washington fans are going to love what Adam Peters does building this team in the future.
Yeah, one of my favorite second rounds ever. Maybe my favorite second round ever. In the
Wow.
years that we've done this. But
Wow.
let's talk about Jayden Daniels really quick. Here's what I'm going to add to the Jayden Daniels talk that I think is fascinating. When NFL people were talking about him, Cease, they often talked about him from the perspective of who would you hate to have to prepare for as a defensive coach?
Yes.
Don't talk to me about mechanics and offense and reading defenses.
Blah, blah,
Just
blah, blah, blah.
as a defensive coach, who do you not want to face out of this class?
Jayden Daniels.
Jayden Daniels. I mean, that's Antonio Pearson. This is a defensive head coach in Dan Quinn, even though it was Adam Peters' call. So interesting perspective on how to quote unquote scout the quarterbacks, but it's just health. If he stays healthy, whew, let's and
Look
they'll
out.
talk. Yeah, I mean, wow, a new era for Washington. This second round, my oh my, Newton is a player that overshadowed in this draft class a little bit by Byron Murphy, but like Murphy, a little bit undersized, maybe a little bit more undersized than Murphy. But I love one of the things I love in the draft season is when a team makes a strength stronger. So this team has already invested a lot of money, a lot of draft capital in Payne and Allen, the Alabama duo. Now imagine you have Payne and Allen at like 70, 75% snaps. Okay. And you have Newton also coming in for 50, 60% of the snaps. And all these guys are fresh. I mean, in the fourth quarter, they're fresh. In the fourth quarter, these guys are playing like they were in the first quarter. I love this pick. Newton is just a pain. And then they get the 2 seconds. They turn a third into a second when they trade down with their division rival, and they get 2 of my favorite players in this draft. Mikey Sainristil. And this pick they moved up, by the way, the pick they moved up was the pick they moved up from the Howell trade. So, just advancing that draft capital up the board until you get a player like Mikey Sainristil, who's a gremlin. I mean, he's a chaos creator and a leader, right? I think of Mike Hilton, our
Uh,
dude Mike Hilton.
yeah,
I wish he was
right,
still with the
right.
Steelers.
Yes. Yes.
Just a chaos creator, a slot corner who is a leader of the defense, can to contribute as a blitzer, can contribute in run defense. Maybe not the best coverage slot corner, but I think in a secondary that needs an identity, we're talking about Michigan players again, and then you get Ben Sinnott. The downside is Cliff Kingsbury offense and a tight end. I don't love that. I don't know how much Cliff is going to stick to the old
What are you going to
concept.
declare him as? You're going to declare him as a TE, but isn't he
Right.
really a
Right.
receiver?
Like Zach Ertz, who he gets to learn from. And maybe it's just a coincidence, but the last 2 tight ends that were the second tight end, the understudy, Trey McBride and Dallas Goedert, they've turned out okay. So I think that kind of cancels each other out. Not true 2-way tight end, big role in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. And Sinnott, I wanted to mention again, he's the latest guy in the line of the joyful warriors at tight end. Right, you're Travis Kelce, you're Rob Gronkowski, you're George Kittle. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as them, but he was a hockey player when he was 3 years old. He didn't want to play football until 4th grade because that's when they allow you to actually tackle. He didn't want to play football if he couldn't tackle and hit guys. This is your kind of dude. They get a developmental tackle. What a great draft to get a developmental tackle in the 3rd or 4th round. And Coleman, McCaffrey, upside, quarterback convert. He's got the McCaffrey bloodline. Probably
Might I say
more
this,
of
Bloom, and I
yeah,
apologize for interrupting
yeah,
again,
please, yeah,
but you mentioned quarterback bloodline.
yeah,
There were, and Liam and him were buddies in high school, so this tells you, like the
you're aging
time.
yourself, yeah,
Right, right, right. There was talk he was the best McCaffrey at Valor,
yeah.
and
Well,
things changed in Michigan, and he's not the quarterback, and so like stuff changed. But and get excited, Washington fans, because there
yeah,
was a time in high school, and Liam was on JV when he was a freshman, but he got to sit on the sidelines for
yeah.
varsity. and they played Christian in high school,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Christian killed everybody.
Right.
But Luke was thought of as the best McCaffrey.
Yeah. And down here in New Orleans, you will hear people tell you Cooper was the best Manning.
Right, right.
And
Yes,
now it's, of course,
yes.
It's Cooper's son Arch that we're watching to maybe overtake
We're
Quinn Ewers.
waiting.
We're waiting. We were waiting for Jordan McGee to maybe be the green dot linebacker. And what's interesting here is, remember, we've got fifth-year option decisions coming up. Maybe we'll do a little show next week about fifth-year option seats,
Mm, mm.
because Jamin Davis, 2021 first-round pick, is
Yes, yes.
unlikely to have his fifth-year option picked up.
Mhm.
So you see, on the draft weekend seats, we also revisit poor draft decisions. Often it's why they make the picks that they make, because of some poor draft decisions. Not necessarily that they made, but maybe their predecessors made in this case. Hampton, a size speeds safety project. Jean Baptiste, developmental edge rusher. So I do like you're looking at the third day of the draft, or even someone like Brandon Coleman, and you're drafting for the future. Jayden Daniels is for the present and the future. The second round, I mean, these are signature guys. 3 signature guys: Sinnott, Sainristil, and Newton. So you talk about changing a team right away. Peters has done that.
UDFAs for the Commanders. Austin Jones. Broncos
Mm-hmm.
had him in for a top 30 visit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a guy with quick feet, receiving back, compact player. And Chiggy Anusium, Colorado State cornerback. Like the way that he fights for the ball when it's in the air. So they got someone with a chip on their shoulder. I'm not saying he'll be their version of Chris Harris Jr., but I, I mean, Adam Peters, man, he did
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, you mentioned Jones. They also got Michael Wiley out of Arizona, who was hurt last year,
Yes,
playing through an
yes.
injury. Great receiving back. So they got a
Hmm.
couple of receiving backs, maybe to be an understudy for Austin Eckler. And then I'm going to mention Sam Hartman. Interesting guy here. And look, this isn't a Kirk Cousins RG3 situation, okay? But just know this about Sam Hartman, okay? And see, think back on the quarterbacks that have had scouting reports like this in the past. I think that Dane Brewer compared him to like Greg Maddux. That's a baseball reference. Greg Maddux is one of the greatest pitchers of all time, and he couldn't hit higher than like 91 or 92 on the radar gun, right?
Okay.
So what do you hear about Sam Hartman? He's smart. He's got great feel for the game. He's athletic. He's a great leader. He just doesn't have arm talent. He's just lacking arm talent. That's why he wasn't drafted. That sounds to me like, at the very least, a player slash coach kind of presence
Mhm.
as a backup or a third quarterback,
Right.
and exactly the guy you want if Jayden Daniels gets a concussion, if Jayden Daniels has to leave a game because he takes a hard hit, because he leaves himself open to those wily coyote hits. I like this. I really like this as a contrast, because we think about the backup quarterback, an athletic backup quarterback, is a contrast from a pocket passer, and it gets the defense off balance. Well, you can go the other direction too. So I really like this as a subtle, underrated UDFA pickup.
I will say this, and I don't ever want to crush a guy too much, although get me talking about Spencer Rattler, and I'll tell you how I really
Yeah.
feel. I stopped taking notes on Sam at the Senior
Yeah.
Bowl.
Yeah.
It was not good. It was not good. Now, maybe that means nothing. I love his hair, right? We did
Yeah.
share some hair tips with each other. Um, so I gotta get some product like Sam Hartman. So I'm rooting for the kid, but
Yeah.
it was like I got to the pretty much the first practice I stopped taking
Yeah.
notes because I was
And
like, "Oh my god, this is bad."
it could be a knockout factor, like Tyrone Moss's lack of burst, or like the or like all the little running backs, that little all the
Uh,
little gnats that get hit on the windshield of the NFL that I love. I mean, it's true. There are things that, and this is why old school NFL scouting that says certain things are a knockout factor. Arm
right.
strength, arm talent could be one for Hartman. But yeah, this division, with Washington now on
So
the
interesting.
rise, becomes a lot more interesting.
Oh my god, so interesting. Will the AFC East be as interesting? I don't
No,
know.
spoiler alert.
You're supposed to do your Morgan Freeman voice, and the answer would be no. In fact, it was not. NFC East done. AFC East up next. It is the Audible. You may be watching us on YouTube. Thank you for that. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. If you're listening via podcast, however you take in your podcast, thank you. We've been doing this since 2006. Love it. So anyway, he's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're going to be talking AFC East draft recap coming up next. We're back. It is the Audible draft recap tradition, and it's the AFC East here. We start with the Buffalo Bills. Did they want to pick? Like, I knew they liked Keon Coleman, so I mocked them Keon Coleman at the end of the first round. And then they give the Chiefs Xavier Worthy. Hey, we can never beat these guys. I wonder why we keep giving them all these guys. Anyway, I'm bitter. They moved back to 32. I was like, okay, it's still going to be Keon Coleman. And then they move out of the first round because Carolina moves up. They get Xavier Leggett. And then the Bills start off on day 2 of the NFL draft. They're like, let's get Keon Coleman. Finally. Okay, good. I love Keon Coleman. First off, loved him on film. You're talking about the big body. He can go up there, push people around, basically. Not necessarily in a Michael Irvin type of like, that's a penalty now, Mike, type of way. But you have a guy that is a bully for the ball. And then at
Mhm.
the combine, he might have been my favorite player I talked to. Just
Yeah, yeah,
personality all
yeah, yeah,
day,
yeah.
confidence all day, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Second round, Cole Bishop, love that pick. All right. Enforcer can play around the line of scrimmage. Utah safety there. Dwayne Carter, Duke defensive tackle in third round. Ray Davis, really a running back that needs to be on everybody's radar. Now, how does it fit with James Cook? All these sorts of things. I do know this, Bloom,
Mm.
if you would like some information.
Ooh,
They're going to
always.
try to emphasize the ground game a little bit more. I personally think it's Sean McDermott's last ditch effort to save his job. They are, working to get the most out of Josh, and they feel like perhaps using the ground game a little bit more would help out Josh, so Josh can be special in moments, and he doesn't feel the pressure that he did at
Right,
Wyoming that he
right.
has at Buffalo, where it's like I got to do everything. No, you get a guy like Ray Davis, throw him in with James Cook. If you're emphasizing the run more, if that turns out to be true, then that's a good pick. Fifth round, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Georgia's center. Thank you.
Very good.
Edufian Olofosio, Washington
Yeah, yeah.
linebacker. Javon Solomon, Troy Edge is a fifth rounder. Get to the sixth rounder. It's Tylen Grable, UCF offensive tackle. Daquan Hardy, Penn State corner in the sixth. And then Travis Clayton, England offensive guard.
Yeah, yeah. I don't wanna belabor this, okay? But I feel like the Chiefs are the nemesis of the Bills at this point,
Very
right?
much so. Very much so.
I
Yes.
mean, they're the boss at the end of the video game that you can't beat. And I understand if no other team was making an offer and the Bills were like, "Yeah, we're pretty confident Keon Coleman's gonna be there. Or we have 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers the same at the top of our board, so we'll just let the draft decide which one we get, or maybe we'll trade down and still have the choice of those guys." I I hope that there were no other teams making an offer to trade up, because I think this is one of the situations, Cease, where you take kind of like war footing, right?
Mhm,
It's a mentality.
mhm,
How do you change the past? How do you change the future to not resemble the past? And it's a kind of like a sorry Joe, F them guys kind of thing. Like,
mhm,
they want our help. You want to borrow a cup of sugar? No, slam the door in their face. No, you're our enemy. You're our enemy. And whether it's about them getting worthy or not getting worthy, and if you don't do the trade with KC and you just take Coleman at 28, sure, you got some picks bumped up the board. Okay, great. Not any major draft capital, but maybe someone takes worthy ahead of them. Why would you help your rival accomplish a goal? And
mhm.
the other thing is, it creates, next time Buffalo and KC play, and they play basically every year, right? How does it feel? What ripples through that sideline when Worthy catches a touchdown?
Mhm.
Now Coleman can say, "Well, I've got a say in this too." But the difference with Coleman is he's a big slot, and I mean, you already have so many players that can do well out of the slot on this roster. Where's the outside receiver? I don't know if Coleman's an outside receiver. I don't know that he has that kind of get off and speed against NFL outside corners.
No.
As a big slot, I like him. The other thing you like about Coleman, where there is a fit here, is he can go up and get the ball. Those Josh Allen aspirational, let's try this and see if it works. Coleman can climb the ladder and go up and snag those balls. So, okay. Bishop, they get, the safeties. This is no longer there's really an opening, a big competition at safety. Bishop, second round pick, should win one of those jobs sooner or later. Carter is a pick, and they move a pick up the board as part of that trade down to replace the pick that they moved down the board to get Rasul Douglas. Carter's a plugger. You can use those guys, snap eaters. Not a lot of upside here. Ray Davis, again, look up his story. He lived in like the basement of a hospital. He was in the foster system. He was unhoused, and now he's in the NFL. I'm not going to compare him directly to Fred Jackson Cease, but that kind of presence in a backfield. You
Mhm.
know, not necessarily someone who's going to truly take over a backfield at any point in time, but you're really happy to have this guy as your number 2 running back or 1A running back. Not really a threat to James Cook. If
No.
anything, like you're saying, Cease, the story here is they're going to lean into the run. James Cook's going to be fine. James Cook is going to be more than fine. Pran Granger, a powerful center. They actually added Chicago's 2025 fourth in a trade. Olofosio is a try-hard depth linebacker. Why did he fall to the third day? Because he's more of a try-hard guy than a guy with gifts. But again, there's potential opportunity here at middle linebacker down the line. Solomon's really interesting. He's on Bruce Feldman's Freaks. I love third-day picks like this.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
le- Led FBS in sacks with 16 sacks this year. So the tools are there and the production was there. Okay, at a lower level. I mean, sure. I mean, even this guy plays 10 snaps a game as a situational edge rusher. Yes,
Remember
please.
DeMarcus Ware?
Right.
Like,
I mean, these guys can swing games. Grable is a nice developmental offensive lineman. Hardy is a return man, maybe a nickel corner with some speed. And Clayton, by far the most interesting pick here. Everyone's doing it now after the Eagles. Who did it first? Howie. How it's like the Simpsons already did it. Howie already did it. This is another rugby guy, 6'7", 300, and runs a 4.79. Okay. So, the NFL is saying, okay, we can work with that. We can do something with that. And now the Bills are the latest to join the rugby parade.
yes, let's talk about the Bills UDFAs before we're out of here with them. Frank Gore Jr.'s there. Saw him at the
Yes.
Shrine Bowl. I like that, he lacks the juice in a somewhat Xavier Oman type of way, Bloom, where it's like
Yeah,
the
yeah. Some of the
talent's
class in the
there,
past.
the
Yeah.
vision's there, the feet are there. He's just not real fast.
Yeah.
So we'll be rooting for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great. I mean, we keep talking about how old we are and how long we've been doing this. I did ask Matt Waldman if Frank Gore Jr. is the first junior of a senior, but he actually started the RSP the year after Frank Gore senior. So we're not
Mm,
there. That's how close we are to that. Anyway, Frank Gore, well, of course, we're rooting for him because it's in a way, to still root for his dad, who I don't think ever got the recognition he deserved. And he did something at the time that was impossible. At that time, if you had 2 ACL, I mean, that's
right,
it. That was it.
right.
You were done. You were never going to amount to anything. No, you were going to amount to Frank Gore, who probably will never make the Hall of Fame, Cease, but is a player that is more memorable than a lot of players who did make it to Canton.
Yes, 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 that's for sure. Miami Dolphins are up next. I love what they did. I love Mike McDaniel. I love Chris as well. Like I really appreciate what they did, and they broke Tampa's heart because Chop Robinson was a
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneer. Like that was one of the worst kept secrets. Like when the Packers got AJ Hawk years ago, it's like they're gonna take AJ. The Buccaneers are gonna take Chop Robinson until they didn't. And no, no, no. There we go. Penn State edge goes to the Miami Dolphins as they just have this wave after wave of pass rushers. Patrick Paul, I really like.
Yeah.
Uh, Considering him a borderline first round pick. So to get him in the 23rd pick of the second round, it's fantastic for the Miami Dolphins. They're certainly a mountain of a man, right? Oh, he doesn't know what he's doing yet. I don't care. You've got that mountain, the mold to work with. Jalen Wright is not Alvin Kamara, but he might be pretty close. So the really fast running
Mm-hmm.
back went to the Miami Dolphins. Shocker.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Mm-hmm.
fourth round. Dallas is
Yeah.
sitting there on their hands, letting Jalen Wright go off the board. Like, what are you, crazy? Crazy? Jalen Wright, awesome. Mo Kamara, edge from Colorado State. Some Elvis Dumerville to his game. I
Yeah.
don't think he's Shaq Barrett. And of course, Shaq was undrafted, but that's because he was a bad body prospect. Hey, the combine doesn't matter. It matters.
Yeah.
Because if they think you're tubby and soft, they're not going to draft you. And then
Yeah.
guys like Shaq Barrett can prove them wrong. Shaq Barrett's amazing. Mo Kamara, though, intense motor, like
Yeah. Yeah.
intense. I asked him about the CU game. He went back to that moment because he was
Mm-hmm.
crushing CU. Oh,
Mhm.
see you, Shooter Sanders, Deion Sanders. He was crushing them by
Mhm.
himself, Bloom. One
Mhm.
man army wrecking crew, and then he got kicked out of the game. So I bring up that
There's a
game
scouting
to him.
report for you.
I bring up that game and the look on his eyes going
Right.
back to that moment where he was going to beat the Colorado Buffaloes and they didn't. And it was like intense. He wasn't mad at me, but it was just intensity, intensity. I love this. Malik Washington, one of my favorite receivers, saw him Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl. Incredible. Definitely makes plays larger than his size. So look out. Hey, another
Yep.
speedy playmaking wide receiver. They
Right,
got
right.
another one too. I'll get to him in a little bit. Patrick McMorris, Cal safety. That's a good player. Taj Washington at the Shrine Bowl. I did a video for him, a short for football guys on our Instagram. So make sure to check that out. I love Taj Washington
Mhm.
at the Shrine Bowl. And Malik was there too. So I was both the Washingtons. I loved them both at the Shrine Bowl. A smaller receiver, but made perhaps the craziest catch of the day, like a diving, sliding, catch it on your
Mhm.
back type of big play there during practice that week. So, and that's your 7th round pick. So, Dolphins, good job, Chris. Good job, Mike. You guys got it done.
Yeah, wondered if they were gonna go offensive line in the first round. Instead, they take Chop Robinson. Uh, for a first round pick, it is a premium position. His game isn't there yet. Okay, yeah, I mean, it is does a little it creates a little deception that he was picked so close to Verse and Latu and Turner because he's not where they are yet. But he's got the first step. He's got the tools to get there, and they are going to keep restocking at edge. And then they get Paul, and this was a great draft again to get your developmental offensive tackle because a player like Paul absolutely goes in the first round in other drafts. Like if Anton Harrison goes in the first round, Patrick Paul can get into the first round in most drafts because this is such a strong offensive tackle class. He falls to the second round, well into the second round, and this is really important because you need to replace Teron Armstead. You need that Teron Armstead replacement. They've spent a lot of picks trying to bolster this offensive line over the last 5 years or so. Still spending picks, and remember, Armstead they had to sign. They lose their third round pick in the Tom Brady tampering. The fourth round pick they gave up for Bradley Chubb. So what do? They take their third round pick next year to get back into the fourth and get Jalen Wright. My oh my.
Mm.
See, best fit. See, best fit in the running back class. Best
Yeah,
fit.
1000%.
Best
1000%.
fit. Best
Yeah.
fit. Best
Yep.
fit. Best fit. I know a lot of people were talking about Xavier Worthy potentially first round to the Dolphins. Like, oh my god, what? No, this is the oh my god. This is the like don't let him don't let Casey get Worthy. Don't let the Dolphins get right. My oh my! And look, Devin Achan hasn't proved he can stay healthy. Raheem Morris will be around for another year or two. It's not at all outlandish to think of Wright as the leader of an insanely productive running game. I can already tell you, doing some rookie drafts, he's very underrated in rookie drafts. Very underrated. Be willing to, like, I would say, reserve a pick in the 20 to 25 range for him. Although I would take him higher. I'm just telling
Mm.
you that you want this guy.
Oh, yeah.
You've already seen what Miami's running game can do, and you know what he can do. You see a perfect match. This is fantastic for fantasy, fireworks. Kamara, like you said, sees undersized. Not, why does he fall to the third day? Well, he's not. He doesn't have the gaudy measurables. Doesn't have the length the NFL loves, but the motor, the energy, and having that guy as like your fifth edge rusher, as a rotational guy, as a guy. Yeah, oh yeah, this is a spark plug guy. Washington, tough, quick, fast, good hands. Just small. He's just a slot only guy. Apparently, Mike McDaniel was bugging Chris Greer for more than one round to take Malik Washington before they finally did. I think Chris was
Uh,
like, "Let me take Mo. Let me take Mo, and
right,
then if he's
right.
still there, you can have Malik." And then McMorris, a smart player, a smart depth piece in the secondary, doesn't have the tools, doesn't have a high ceiling. And then Washington, another slot machine, another guy that is going to give you great play out of the slot. Like you said, undersized receivers, no problem for this team. So they have some depth now. Some of those depth signings haven't quite worked out as well as they hoped. I think one of these guys, certainly Malik, will stick. And the Dolphins had a rough offseason. They had to shed a lot of players, shed a lot of salary. They're just
Mhm.
kind of trying to stay level, but it wasn't that much different for the Bills. So maybe with this draft class, they can keep up.
This sort of draft class can not only keep you level, but it can accelerate you. That's the group of these players, and they were always going edge in the first. They were
Mhm,
always going edge in the first. I had Latu to them,
mhm.
but they had Chop go to them. Anyway, UDFA's not seeing a whole lot, Bloom. What
Yeah,
is it? The FAU kid, but he's not fast.
right.
So I'm like, okay. Jaquan Burton, I'll keep an eye on him. Smaller, maybe return man option, but any sort of receiver on the Dolphins, we're going to monitor.
Yeah, again, here's the trend. Not rugby, basketball, but, Baron Matos, who they gave
Is
about
that the international guy?
yeah, the international guy from the Dominican Republic. They gave him about a $250,000 guarantee on his contract, international pathway player, and they're converting him to offensive line. So usually you hear about offensive line to tight end. Here's offensive line, basketball, not to tight end, but to offensive line. I think it's really smart that the NFL is catching up on this. And see, so there's a larger conversation here to have about, well, if the NFL is looking at these guys with the physical traits who haven't played football, in some cases actually haven't played football, but say we can turn them into a professional, what does that tell you about the importance of traits in the NFL?
Yes, very much so. Let's get on to the New England Patriots. And I didn't know what to believe, Bloom. And I believe I said that such on this show. Like, I've been told the Patriots will take Drake May, but that's different from what they were saying in January, which is it's all about Jane Daniels, and then they'll move back for Michael Penix at the end of the first round. He did not make it that far.
Yes.
But they take Drake May. So again, what I've learned, when I'm hearing Tennessee's going to throw a curveball in the first and then they don't, I was like, okay, I'm unreliable source. You know what I mean? When I hear from New England for the first time ever, because with Belichick they didn't talk, and I'm being told we will take Drake May. Oh, okay. Well, that's a reliable source. Okay, here we go. It is Drake May, and Drake May needs some time.
Yeah.
He needs some time. And personality goes a long way with me. I'm gonna be like Jules from Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't really have a personality. We've talked about her on this show. You bring up Eli Manning. It's a very good point, but he's a little too leave it to Beaver, aw shucks, golly gee whiz. And
He's a
listen,
little brother, just like Eli. It's a little brother.
right, right. And the thing is like you come from a franchise that had Tommy Brady not that long ago. Those fans are gonna want a Tommy Brady, and perhaps that's unfair. How many years did Broncos fans want a John Elway? It doesn't happen. Okay. So I get it. I understand it. And I'm rooting for Drake May. He's a good kid. He's a good kid, but my God, he's playing hero ball all the time. That's
Right.
my biggest problem with him. The attitude thing is just whatever. That's just part of the conversation. But for me on the field, it's just like not every throw has to be a touchdown.
Right.
It's cool that you want it to be, but sometimes you got to make the easy stuff easy, and he makes the easy stuff hard because he's like, I could take that dump off, but I'm going to throw it into triple coverage
Yeah.
because I've got this arm. So he's got arm arrogance. His feet aren't always great. That's a bad combination when you take him top five and fans. And again, perhaps this is unfair, Bloom, but fans are going to be like, he's the man. And like, he's not the man yet. He needs to sit behind Jacoby for a year.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen. And I like Jacoby enough. I'm rooting for him, whatever's whatever. But it's like, there's a ton of pressure on Drake May. I hope he responds. Athletic family, like you said. So he's used to competition there. So we'll see. Let's put a pin in it. But that's probably, you mentioned fit, right? We're talking
Yeah.
about Jalen Wright. My God, let's just talk about Jalen Wright some more. It's amazing. But the fit for Drake May is not good. This is not a good fit. I could be totally wrong, but I don't like this fit for Drake May. Let's move on. Second rounder, Jalen Polk, Washington wide receiver. They had so many. Michael Penix just slinging it.
Mhm.
Playmaker, playmaker, playmaker. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Polk's one of those playmakers. Wasn't all about Roma Dunze. Caden Wallace, Penn State offensive tackle in the third round. Layden Robinson, Texas A&M guard in the fourth. Javon Baker, UCF wide receiver, and another one. Marcellus Dial, South Carolina corner in the sixth. Joe Milton, there he goes.
Yeah.
And Elliott Wolf. God bless Elliott Wolf. God bless him. Because Ron Wolf's strategy, what was Ron Wolf's strategy, Bloom, all the time? Like,
Always take a quarterback. Every
always
draft.
take a
Take a
always take a
quarterback in
quarterback.
every single
Always take a
draft.
quarterback. If Joe Milton, and this is not hot takey because I think hot takes are stupid. If Joe Milton turned out to be a better quarterback than Drake May, I wouldn't be surprised. And again, it's not really about May himself. It's kind of this fit. Milton's going to get plenty of time. right? What is it, 6th rounder? What did I say?
Mhm.
6th,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Super smart. Okay. Learned the system at Michigan, got some hard coaching from Jim Harbaugh because Jim Harbaugh's an aloha. Sorry, Joe. Um, Goes to Tennessee. Teammates love him. Again, Bazooka Joe, don't call him that. But anyway, like he could throw, he told me at the Senior Bowl, he's been throwing 85 yards since he was in ninth grade. All right. So again, arm arrogance. And it was so funny at the combine watching throwing drills.
Mhm.
Now, when you watch Milton on the field, I mean, it's just beautiful, right? You can rip it, sling it, an 85, 9. What are you talking? 90, throw it 100. I don't even care. But when he was doing the underneath stuff, Bloom, he was slowing down with his motion because he was like, I'm really aiming. But he was trying, man. He was trying because McAllen Castles told me he throws everything 100 miles an hour. So it's like a 5 yard out, it's 100 miles an hour. It's going to get there. But at the combine, somebody had told him, like, you can't throw it through the wall. So he was real slow and
Right.
deliberate. He was aiming. He was trying. I
Right,
love
right.
Joe Milton in this spot. Now, while I feel it's a bad fit for Drake May, there's gonna be a ton of pressure on him. I love the spot for Joe Milton because he can just sit back,
Yeah.
sit back and show off his. He'll be a fan favorite in camp because he can throw it 85 yards. Okay, Jaheim Bell. I could go on and on about Jaheim Bell, Florida State tight end. Bloom, I'm chatty. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. Let's hand this thing off because
Yeah.
the Patriots, it's interesting. I don't know if it works, but it's interesting.
Yeah, again, reportedly, they could have gotten 3 first-round picks and had to give a couple of mid-round picks back to Minnesota. If they liked JJ McCarthy, that would have been a trade. Reportedly, they could have gotten the number 6 pick, Malik Neighbors, and the Giants' first-round pick. So they must really like Drake May. Just to piggyback on what you're saying, Cease, I think that Drake May, just his game needs to be tightened up. His decision making needs to be tightened up. Is throwing him on the field as a rookie on a rebuilding team with, I'm sorry, Alex Van Pelt. I mean, Alex Van Pelt is almost something you associate with, like, oh, quarterback whisperer. Yeah, offense. He's going to make things easier. No, and who's going to win? I mean, this is partially, I think, what the problem was with Bryce Young last year. Okay, ball snapped. You need to make a play on 3rd and 7. Who's going to win? Who's going to win in this offense? Nobody.
Crickets.
You maybe try to trade for T. Higgins or something like that. So now you're going to have those bad habits ingrained. We'll see how they handle it. We'll see if Jared Mayo is patient. We'll see, because those bad habits could be ingrained. And then here we go with Drake May. They move down and get Polk. Look, a lot of people told me Jalen McMillan, we'll talk about when we get to the NFC South.
Mm,
Jalen McMillan is better than Polk. And then when they were both on the field and McMillan was healthy, you could see who Michael Penix was favoring.
I love them both.
Yeah, I mean Polk. Look, I'm gonna put Polk and Javon Baker together, who they get in the 4th round, and
Right. Right.
they get that bump up to 110 by moving down, and they use that to take Baker. I think Baker's a better player than Polk, honestly. If I had to take one or the other in rookie draft, I would take Baker. You don't have to take one or the other. You can wait until Polk is drafted in your rookie draft, and then wait like a round and take Baker. They're both guys who can win at the catch point. Okay, Baker, I think maybe has a little more dynamism as a mover, but neither of these guys are number ones. All right, this team is lacking a number one. They're lacking someone who can win. Like Neighbors could have been that guy. Maybe take your quarterback next year. I don't know. You get Wallace, solid right tackle, maybe offensive guard, another guard in Robinson, but Dial, speed, cornerback project, and then cease yard sale. Right, this is a yard sale. This is the yard sale part of the draft for the Patriots. Anybody want to give me anything for Mac Jones? Okay, hey, a 6th round pick. So Mac Jones was traded for Joe Milton. Let that sink in for a second.
Wow.
Mac Jones was traded for Joe Milton, and then N'Keal Harry was traded for Jaheim Bell. Again, we're revisiting some poor decisions when we think about how these picks came to be in possession of these teams. Bell is, Scott Barrett loved him. Gonna have Scott on the couch here soon. Loved him. He's Bell. Call him Johnny Smith light. I mean, he's that kind of player. Okay, and maybe
Yes.
he's part of
Yes.
the answer.
Hmm.
Maybe he's part of the answer of how do you find matchups where you can win in this offense. I'm worried for Drake May because this is going to be a bottom 5 offense this year.
Bloom, I hate to do this because I said we'd be a little shorter on this show. We're not going to be shorter on the show because I have to get your I
Yeah,
got to get your take on this, man. It's
yeah.
incredible. Um, Timing.
Mhm.
Football and life are about timing,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Gerard Mayo, who I love, you didn't have to do this. I know
No.
Robert Kraft was at the owners' meetings, thankfully not dancing. And he was like, "We got to get a franchise quarterback." No, you don't.
Right.
Or here's the play, because you could have not taken a quarter, you could have whatever, and just taken Joe Milton, and then hey, get ready for next year. It's Jacoby Brissett, and then you got a lottery ticket and Joe Milton. I like that plan. Here's another plan, because I know they liked Penix. All right, and Penix was going to be a top 10 pick. We had
Yeah.
that thumbnail on this show. Oh, it's crazy. Like, no, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Here's what you could have done. And it would have been interesting if had this been their plan. Move
Right.
back with Minnesota, get that haul. Maybe you talk him out of the mid-round stuff. Minnesota, what do you really want this guy, Minnesota?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Get out of here with that.
You don't want him that bad. Yeah.
Right, right. So move back. You're at 11. You're thinking you can get Michael Penix, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Why wasn't that the
so many,
plan?
there's so many permutations. There's so many
Right,
permutations.
right.
Uh, but yeah,
Gerard Mayo didn't need to do this.
we'll see. We'll see. Ellie Wolf. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I do think that whether you meant to stake your job on Drake May, Wolf, and Mayo, you just did it.
We still got to talk about the UDFAs, don't we?
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Uh, Deshaun Fenwick's all right. I saw him somewhere. I can't
Yeah.
remember. Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, whatever. And he wasn't the best back that I saw, but I admire his game. All-purpose guy, whatever. So
Yeah.
there you
They
go.
got LSU center, Charles
Hmm.
Turner.
Okay.
Low ceiling guy, but hey, you get a guy from a big program who started. That's something. That's all I could find.
Okay. Let's move on then. Wrap up the AFC East with the New York Jets. Okay, Jets. Let's see what you can do here with Olu Fashanu, Penn State offensive tackle in the first round. And for the Fashanu's falling, like he wasn't gonna fall in this tackle class.
Utanu, yes.
Right,
Thank
right,
you.
right, right. Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky wide receiver, saw him, I believe, at the Senior Bowl bloom because that helmet, the Hilltoppers helmet, it stands out, and he stands out as a playmaker down the field. Catch radius, amazing. Go up and get it. Braylon Allen, Wisconsin running back here. Brandon Jacobs, he's got build-up power. You're going to see his size, and he's absolutely huge, but he doesn't run with instant power. So he's got to build up ahead of steam, student body left, and then he's tough to bring down. So that's interesting. Let's put a pin in that. Jordan Travis, I mean, I love I know his teammates love him. And I appreciate that he went to the Shrine Bowl even though he couldn't participate. Quarterback Florida State, of course. Yeah, I mean, wow, it's going to be a jump for him, and he's a small man, the bottom line, measurables, whatever, but he's a small quarterback. Like,
Right.
I don't think he can play in the pro small quarterback. Could be totally wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Isaiah Davis, South Dakota State running back, another Shrine Bowl player that I saw. I like his movement in space, runner, receiver out of the backfield. Quantez Stiggers, never played college football. He was at
Yeah.
the Shrine Bowl. So from the CFL to the NFL, 5th round pick, and he is a dog. He's got some dog in his game at the cornerback position. I like that pick. Jalen Key, Alabama safety, to round things out for the Jets, which I can sum up there. They always say Jets, 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 Jets. I'll say MEH, meh.
Yeah, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this team lives and dies with Aaron Rodgers this year still. At least they got an offensive lineman.
Sure.
Instead of Brock Bowers. I'm not saying Brock Bowers would have been a bad pick, but actually, with talk that they were going to focus on the present, and Bowers could maybe help more in the present. Fashanu, a pass pro left tackle. Not my favorite type of left tackle to take in the first round. Let me put it this. I mean, I I feel like, and this is me just totally anecdotally thinking, that the dancing bears who are excellent in pass pro, but maybe don't have that mean streak. We'll see. Maybe I'm not sure. But that being said, the movement skills and the size are exactly what you want in pass pro from a left tackle. This year he's a swing tackle. We'll see if Tyron Smith can stay healthy. That's why this was such an important pick. If Smith can't stay healthy, you have a chance. They give up the second the Roger deal. They move up to get Corley. Okay, I mean, again, how often does this profile work out? Oh, wow, after the catch, he's a running back. After the catch, he's just so hard to corral and does so much. Getting open, running around. Oh, yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on. Okay, I mean, not every guy's going to be Debo Samuel, all right? But they like Corley. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
as much of a fan here. They trade down in the fourth, and they get 2 fifths. They trade down and get Detroit's third next year, so they're adding some capital. And then they take Braylon Allen. And I think again, this is a guy that's going to win a beauty contest in terms of measurables, but you never see it come together in on the field. Matt Waldman on the Couch RSP week said that this is one of those guys like it's like a restaurant you go to, and every time you get something like something about it tastes good, but the rest of it you don't want to eat, and then the next time something different tastes good, but you still don't want the rest of it. And if you could just put together all of those things in one rep, wow, you have a running back, but it never actually happens. And then they had to go back to the well again. Let's just put Isaiah Davis with him, the size speed guy, developmental running back. So obviously, this is bad news for Izzy Abanaconda, who's more of a zone one cut and go guy. They're looking more power. So I don't know what changed their mind about what they wanted. Maybe it's a contrast with Brees Hall. Jordan Travis, they gave up 2-6 to move up to get him. Um, and like you said, Cease, I mean, this is a leader. You know, maybe you could say if he wasn't hurt, the NFL might have discovered a little more positive in his valuation, tools wise or translation to the pro game wise. You know, I mean, think of like what was the kid from TCU last year, Dugan, Max Dugan, right?
Right. Right.
You know,
Mhm.
where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, a winner, his teammates play for him, athletic, just makes the most out of what's there. But how does that play when you step up? And I say this, and I spent some time on him because what's the succession plan right now for Aaron? How many more years is Aaron Rodgers going to play? Is Aaron Rodgers even really wanting to play football at this point? Is that a fair question to ask, Cease?
He wants to do podcasts.
Yeah.
God bless him. He can go do whatever he wants
He
to
can do whatever he
do.
wants. We all
Yeah.
can. But
Yeah.
what's the succession plan here? Because the end's coming up soon. If it isn't already here, but we don't realize it yet because we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Let's take a minute to talk about Stiggers. This is a guy who was a no-star recruit, quit football when his dad died.
Mm.
Just quit football. Was working like any number of odd jobs to help out his family, which tells you something about him.
Yeah.
Then his mom, man, God bless all the
God
mothers.
bless him, man.
His mom says there's this new thing, fan controlled football, FCF. Why don't you check that out? I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you in that. You know. Um, and he ends up killing it. He had like 5 interceptions. Reminds me of the Great British Baking Show. We love baking shows. Me and the love of my life, Kate. We love baking shows. And there was this
What's
humble
it
guy.
called? Because
The
Avery likes baking shows, so I
the
gotta
great
be cool
the
dad
great.
factor.
I think it's the Great British Baking Show. Paul Hollywood. That's all you need to know. Paul Hollywood.
So all I
He's like
gotta do is tell Avery, like, "Hey, Paul Hollywood, man, I really
right
like
if
that."
she. Yeah, check it out. So there was the guy I think maybe that won the latest one was really humble. I think didn't even think he was a good baker, and it was his I want to say his girlfriend that like without even him knowing put his name in for the Great British
Wow.
Baking Show. It's like what did you do? I'm not going to do. So the mom says maybe you should start playing football again. Sometimes we need that person to overcome that inertia. And then he ends up in the CFL, and then he ends up getting drafted. And the corner, and it's another one of those good calls. If you like watching the calls and the emotion, all the emotion, the best
Mhm.
one I think is the one with Verse and Fisk, the Florida State teammates that ended up together on the Rams, because Verse is literally running up the stairs to try to be the one to make the phone call to Fisk, but he didn't because of LA traffic. He didn't make it in time. But when they finally get to talk to each other on the phone, like this is really happening. Oh, I'm gonna get choked up right now
I
because
got chills.
there's so many years, so much sacrifice, so much struggle, so many moments of doubt. And for a player like Stiggers, you couldn't even imagine. So look that one up if you like the emotion. And the rest of the, they gave up trade picks. They got a pick Chuck Clark trade they gave up. They got a pick in the Zach Wilson trade. Again, revisiting some bad decisions. And then Mr. Irrelevant, J. Key, smart. He's got a good size. He was a starter for Alabama. You can do worse with the last pick of getting an Alabama starter.
Yeah, there you go. And then, hey, undrafted guys, a couple edges, including the Michigan kid. So there you go, Jets.
Yeah. And they got Leonard Taylor, who was highly recruited, developmental defensive tackle. Again, one of these guys who came out early, one reporter said with certainty he would have gotten 600,000 name and likeness, image likeness money if he had stayed. So maybe that's another warning. Maybe the underclassmen number will go down more. But for now, it is the Jets' gain, getting a player that might have been a lot higher drafted if he had stayed in school for one more year.
It is my gain. Every day I get to talk to Sigmund Bloom. How about that? There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, let's get crunchy. Oh, we got to wrap up the show. The crunchy show's for later.
Yeah.
Can football give us a break so we can do our 8,600th
Right.
podcast idea? Anyway, we are approaching 5,000 for Audible episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It should be sometime this year. So
Right.
we'll have to do another celebration. Anyway, we appreciate you all. Help us out on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And he's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. Look at that. See, that's the headshot right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or do the old glamour shots one, right? Or like ding, like the thinker.
Right. With your the superimposed head behind your head.
We need somebody to get on that. Brian, 5-ish, somebody get on that. Make a senior picture for Sigmund Bloom. There you go. He's Bloom. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?